United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Chief or Mayor, who wants to start it? We're going to start with you guys first. How's that?
Haven't you been on vacation? Haven't you been on vacation? Okay.
I want to introduce you to our newest firefighter. He started actually on May 26th, but we've had some scheduling issues to get everybody here. And I'll let him kind of tell a little bit about himself to you. This is Thad Davis.
Hi, I'm Thad Davis. I grew up here in Champaign County from North Lewisburg. I've been a firefighter for 7 years and a medic for 4, and I just started here in May.
Any questions? You want to introduce your wife?
This is my wife, Abby, and kids, Lily and Emma.
And then one in the...
And Max is on the way.
We got a bun in the oven.
My dad, Carl, Mom, Alicia, father-in-law, Kevin, mother-in-law, Alicia, and my sister, Georgia.
Welcome aboard.
I have a
Thank
comment,
you.
Mr. Hess.
Go right ahead, Mr. Evans.
You understand that you're joining one of the most professional fire companies in the state.
I do.
We're very proud of our fire department, and you look like you're the kind of guy we want.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
We're going to get him. We're going to swear him in.
All right.
So,
Don't swear at him. Okay. Yep. You want to stand up here?
Why don't we come out here? That way you can get the flag in there.
Okay.
Hold on.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Thad Davis,
I, Thad Davis,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and loyally
that I will faithfully and loyally
execute the duties of firefighter
execute the duties of firefighter
of Urbana Fire Division.
of Urbana Fire Division.
I will do the best of my ability,
I will do the best of my ability,
carry out the mission of the division
carry out the mission of the division,
in service to the people of the Urbana Fire Division
in service to the people of the Urbana Fire Division
Response District.
Response District.
I will uphold the standards of my profession.
I will uphold the standards of my profession.
I recognize the badge of my office
I recognize the badge of my office
as a symbol of public faith and trust,
as a symbol of public faith and trust,
and I will remain true to the ethics
and I will remain true to the ethics
of the fire service.
of the fire service.
I will at all times
I will at all times
respect the property and rights of all others.
will respect the property and rights of all others.
I will observe and obey
I will observe and obey
the policies and procedures
the policies and procedures
of the Urbana Fire Division
of the Urbana Fire Division
and the laws of the United States,
and the laws of the United States,
the state of Ohio,
the state of Ohio,
the city of Urbana,
the city of Urbana,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
So why is Bill got his right hand up for?
He's just swearing in.
We got some other paramedics. Congratulations again.
Everybody get all the pictures you needed? Okay, well, congratulations. I hate to say this, but he looks awfully young, or maybe I'm just kind of old, but good luck, and we know you're going to do a fine job. scrolling down, Amy. I hope. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is approval of Urbana City Council regular session minutes of July 21st, 2015, in addition to the Urbana City Council work session minutes of July 28th, 2015. Council, speak to those. We need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any corrections or additions to those two sets of minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting those two sets of minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And we have 5 communications. We can do them all at once and have our clerk read them and then go through them one at a time, or we can do them one at a time. It's up to you.
Let's just do them all at once.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you read all those, please?
Number 1, copy of letter to Urbana School Board, see attached. Division Activities Report, see attached. Champaign Countrywide Public Safety Communications Center Financial Report, emailed July 28, 2015. Planning Commission Minutes, emailed July 29, 2015. Ohio Municipal League Income Tax Information, emailed July 30th, 2015.
Mr. Hess, point of order. We had a motion on the floor and it was second, but you held no vote.
I'm sorry, I forgot all about that. To back up, all those in favor of reading and accepting all those at once, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They've been read. Now then, are there any questions, Mr. Fields, on any of those? Mr. Evans?
None.
No, sir.
Mr. Paul? Mr.
Nope.
Smith?
No.
No questions.
Zachary?
No questions.
No questions? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the 5 communications, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Move right on into administrative reports from the Board of Control.
Number 1, the Board of Control recommends that the Director of Administration amend the existing contract with DLZ Ohio Incorporated to add additional services in the amount of $17,500 for project management, negotiation services, closing services, and recording services related to the SRTS Phase 2, PID number 96388. DLZ was selected by the city through a qualification-based selection process to complete right-of-way plans for this project and 2 other ODOT-funded projects. In 2015, the available budget for SRTS Phase 2 will be exceeded. The additional funding required will utilize funds from the Capital Improvement Fund. Council recently approved $10,500 in cost for title research and appraisal work related to this project. This additional work can now be approved because the city recently received right-of-way acquisition authorization from ODOT. Vote 3-0.
Okay, council, speak to this. We need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, within the last month or two, council approved the $10,500. That was to do title research and appraisal work. But there are other pieces of this puzzle, and we didn't present them at that time and that cost because we had to actually get our federal right-of-way authorization before we could add those services. I believe I explained that night. If I didn't get that clear, I apologize. But essentially, this will get us to the point to where we'll be able to do right-of-way acquisition and actually complete right-of-way acquisition for that project. The only other costs that we have, as we mentioned the last time we talked about this project, our construction cost is picked up entirely by the grant. So we had an investment in doing right-of-way plans and then also this right-of-way acquisition process. And we actually have some funds in our grant to actually pay for the acquisitions once we have the appraisals and all of that and the actual values in order. So we're getting closer to the end of the process for this one, if you will. But as I mentioned, there's a lot of hoops when you take ODOT's funds because it's federal transportation dollars from the Federal Highway Administration. So that being said, there's a lot of hoops to jump through to be able to take advantage of the funds. And this is just continuing that process to get us to the end game, which is to build sidewalks on Boyce and Madison next spring, summer. So
Mr. Evans, questions?
Now, the $10,500 that we approved recently, that was not in the budget.
We had some funding in the budget this year, which we spent on the right-of-way plan work earlier in the year, plus I think we may add a little bit remaining. I can't remember the exact breakdown, but we've essentially had to kind of adjust our capital dollars this year to be able to do what we need to do.
So, and then the additional 7,000 is not in the budget as well, correct?
This amount, this money here, no.
That's it.
Mr. Paul?
So just to clarify on what Al was just saying, so we already spent 10.5, we're adding just an additional 7?
No.
It's another 17.5.
You approved 10.5 and you're adding 17.5.
Okay. That's all I need a clarification on, thank you.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Sacker?
I don't have any questions right now.
Mr. Pena?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Fields?
Not at this time.
Okay. No further questions from council. All those in favor of accepting the Board of Control's recommendation, authorize the Director of Administration to amend the existing contract with DLZ to add additional services in the amount of $17,500 for project management, negotiation services, and closing services, and recording services. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And the next one, please.
The Board of Control recommends council authorize a purchase order to Strasser Construction Incorporated in the amount of $79,791.22 for crack sealing, chip sealing, and micro surfacing on North Jefferson Avenue and crack sealing on East Water Street. The pricing for this project is determined by a contract that the Ohio Department of Transportation has with Strasser Construction. The City of Urbana has requested permission from ODOT to utilize the contract pricing. This expense will be charged to capital improvement, street paving, and is in the 2015 budget. Vote 3-0.
Okay, council, to speak to this, we need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Got it?
All right. This constitutes the city's street paving program for the year. We did not have a formal program set up that we bid at the beginning of the year like we normally do. That's usually done in March or April. We were trying to focus this year on maintenance projects since so many other places were receiving new asphalt, namely Court Street, Church Street, and Amherst, Wooddale, those places. And also we were supposed to pave Taft Avenue with the CDBG funds. So this is a maintenance project. One of the things that will happen is crack sealing on East Water Street. East Water Street project was done in 2006, and it's in need of a little maintenance to get it a little further. You can see that it's a pretty good street. It's holding up pretty nicely. It does have some cracks developing, and we're wanting to take care of that so further problems don't develop. On Jefferson, I think the last time it was paved was in 2008, and it's got a little more failure due to its probably its base. It doesn't have as sturdy as of a base like Water Street does. So we're aiming to do 3 treatments to this. We'll do a crack seal first, followed by a chip seal, and that'll last for about a week, and then they come back and put a microsurface on top of that. Those last 2 processes were done on East Lawn and Children's Home last year, if you're familiar. And then the following item will be striping of those 2 streets as well. So we'll get to that next.
Mr. Paul, questions?
Can you just real briefly, you've got 3 different processes, the crack, the chip, sealing. Okay, can you just like in 1 or 2 sentences say, okay, what that is? Are they just plugging a crack and that's it? Or
Okay.
is it something special that they do?
The crack seal plugs the crack first. The chip seal is a inner layer which gives it more flexibility, and the microsurface makes it look nice, gives it a better surface.
Is that like a small asphalt surface on top? Is that what they do for the microsurface?
Basically,
Okay.
yes.
Well, it's in the budget. We've got it taken care of, so I don't see any reason not to pass this. So that's all I have.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Thacker?
How long should we expect this to hold up once you get it finished? Is that a 5-year, 6-year thing?
North Jefferson Avenue, probably 7 to 8 years.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Mr. Pena?
No questions.
Mr. Fields?
How much more would it have cost if we'd had asphalt put down? You got any idea?
Yeah, I looked at that option too. That would have been like $125,000.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Couple questions. When you say you say it because of Jefferson, is it because of the general area over there? It's not got a good earth underneath it. It's more of like swampy type area.
Somewhat, but you don't see a lot of settlement in that area. You just see a lot of cracking coming through. I think it's a thin layer of asphalt is all we have over there. So whether it's 4 inches, but it carries a lot of traffic.
So with this process, are we going to kind of take care of one of my pet peeves over there? Are we going to straighten out all the digs and get them level so
Yeah.
they're not like speed bumps?
Yeah, one of the things we want to take care of first with the Durapatcher is to take care of the one in the 200 block northbound. The other digs, the concrete digs, are adequate. Now, we can talk later if you want about the one near Ward Street. That's been a perpetual problem, but it's durable. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. So we're going to go with that in mind, getting those straightened out.
Well, at least the one
Okay.
with our own forces. Yes.
All right. Okay, that's all I have.
Any other questions from council? Hearing none, all those in favor accepting the Board Control's recommendation to authorize a purchase order to Strasser Construction, Inc. in the amount of $79,791.22 for crack sealing, chip sealing, and microsurfacing on North Jefferson and crack sealing on East Water. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That was a mouthful. Any opposed?
No.
Records show Mr. Fields said no. Passes 5-1. Next one, please.
Number 3, the Board of Control recommends council authorize a purchase order to Griffin Pavement Striping Incorporated in the amount of $20,559.43 for thermoplastic striping on Monument Square, North Jefferson Avenue, and East Water Street. This quote was the lowest of 3 received. This expense will be charged to capital improvement, street paving, and is in the 2015 budget.
Okay, council, speaking of this, we need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Evans, thank you. Fowler, once again.
This is partially a follow-up project, North Jefferson Avenue. If we end up doing a crack seal, microsurface, then that's going to need striping redone. So that's a portion of it. On East Water Street, the lines have become so faded that they're very hard to see. We want to get a center line stripe back on that and get the turn lane striped better too. And by the way, the limits are on Water Street from North Main to Finch Street. So the limits of the Water Street project. South Main to Finch, sorry. The limits for Jefferson are from Scioto to Boyce. And Monument Square, as you're well aware, the striping there has faded. If we were to just put normal striping down, that would probably only last 1 year. Now, we've gotten this far, 6 years, on the thermoplastic that was originally installed, so that's what we're aiming to do again. This will be for, I believe, a half a block at least each way, and only restriping the things that are needed. For instance, the parking areas don't need it yet around the square. So Monument Square, we're proposing to do at night, so that'll be night work. The other 2 will directly follow the other programs.
Mrs. Smith, questions?
No.
Mr. Thacker?
No question.
Mr. Pena?
Very self-explanatory, no.
Mr. Fields?
How well will this, on that chip and seal they're doing over there, will that adhere to that pretty good, or?
Since the chip and seal is the inner layer, it'll adhere better to the microsurface, which is over top.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Are we going with the same type of striping in the roundabout, or are we gonna change the design, or?
Same, it's an over stripe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, it's gonna look the same as it was when it was first laid down?
Right.
Okay.
So yes, we'll still have people that think that's a lane. Yeah.
If I could just add maybe a comment to Al's point. One of the things we've been looking at throughout this year is trying to evaluate, and we've already done some preliminary discussions with different firms to reconfigure and realign the roundabout. What we'd like to do is our plan is to put that in the budget for next year, is to try to figure out a realignment, and whether it happens next year or not. We want to try to shoot for that, but in order to get there, we have to do a study and look at traffic studies and reevaluate it now that we have it. Before, it was done with a lot of estimates and guesswork based on traffic at the time. So it worked out, and we've been looking at the capital budget pretty closely the last 30 days. If we can squeeze it in yet this year, like in the third or fourth quarter, to try to get that study completed this year, then we can set up a timeline based on whether it's going to happen next year or the following year. In the interim, we have to do something to kind of remark and demarcate the out of bounds and the in zone.
Well, the reason I asked was because, is there any way just on the northbound east side right turn, when you're in there with another car on the inside and you both start out, if the car on the inside follows the lane, you kind of go out and this guy's going straight and then they turn right. Can that be just that line or that lane be moved east just a little, so that when it kind of goes like that, when you're trying to turn right, you know what I'm talking about? When you're trying to turn right, if you go by the line of the lane, it kind of makes you want to go over this way towards the middle before you turn right.
One of the consultants we talked to talked about that situation. So you have foresight there.
Well, but can you just do it without having a big study done? I mean, just say, hey, why don't you move that over a few feet?
I mean, we could look at that.
Yeah, because you know it is a problem. Yeah, I think it is. That's all.
That's all. Anything else, council?
I've got one more question. The product that you're using for that striping, it does get slick. Is there any additive that could be put into it to make it a little bit more gritty or something? Because when it's raining or when it's snow or something like that, and somebody steps on it, it is slick.
Yeah. Initially, the only thing that's added to it are glass beads to make it reflective, but over time, you know, that part of the grit wears off with traffic tires, so I don't know that they have a better method out there. They have other products, but none of them last as long as this one, from what we've seen.
That's all. Thank you.
One more shot, council. Anything? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor accepting the Board of Control's recommendation to authorize a purchase order to Griffith Pavement Striping, Inc. in the amount of $20,559.43 for thermoplastic striping on the Monument Square, North Jefferson, and East Water Street, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And the last one.
Number 4, the Board of Control recommends council authorize purchase orders to various vendors in the amount of $68,309 for the installation of 2 new north and south high-power hangar doors, along with the necessary electrical, drainage, and concrete improvements at the Grimes hangar at Grimes Field. This expense will be charged to the Capital Improvement, Airport, and is in the 2015 budget at $68,000. See attached. Vote 3-0.
Okay, council, to speak to this, we need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Hopefully, the information I had in your packet answered some questions. Again, tried to provide a little overview of how old those hangars are and what happened over the years. Interesting to find, if you look at the one handout, had a 1959 when they split the original hangar in two, and the southern piece was moved further south so they could build the center hangar for the flying lab. But the last couple of years, we've been challenged with trying to keep those doors operating. They're on metal tracks and dollies, and they've been, I guess, super glued and packed full of insulation. The intent was to, after 72 years, it's time to look at those as a replacement. Some of the pictures that I provided were more representative than they are a lot of detail. But especially on the north side, the apron that leads into that hangar has settled and cracked. The water runs off the tarmac, it kind of runs back into the hangar. There's a drainage pit, if you will, on the northwest corner of that apron. Chad happened to be in the area with his camera doing some camera work. We asked him to come over and run a camera in that drain line, and it's blocked several feet into that drain line. So we're not sure if it goes kind of a northeasterly direction or if it comes directly east across the apron. So our intent is to, as we're doing this project, is to open up that apron, re-pour it, re-grade it, and put in a trench drain so when water that does make it that direction hits that trench drain, it drops in, takes off to the east, and we'll eventually dump it into that holding area out in the east of the hangar. We've spent a lot of time looking at various different options. There's several types of hangar doors that bifold, and there's some moving parts there, and there's some challenges just in the way they operate. We did get an opportunity to go visit another set over in Plain City, which is the one we're asking to be installed. It's a single door, and it has two moving parts, basically, two hydraulic cylinders, and when the door opens, it goes up about 6 inches. Then there's a set of cam rollers that follow a path up overhead, and it rolls back, comes up square, and comes back all one piece. So you don't have the hinges, you don't have the other mechanical pieces that sometimes require a lot of maintenance and issues moving forward. So with some planning, again, we put money in the budget this year for the door and some other infrastructure around that building, putting together a package, if you will. This is all the detail, but it's kind of lumped in. We would have had a list probably 3 times as long if we wanted to list every item, in terms of how we're going to handle it. But it's going to have demolition of the existing doors, pouring the new column footers for the new doors, install the new doors, then in the same time, same project, re-pour those aprons on the north side, and then portions of it on the south, because it's still fairly decent shape on the south, but part of it has to come out. So it's just an opportunity to try to preserve what we have. We want to put metal on the end cap. You saw the 2 end caps, the north and south views. The wood is starting to splinter and peel. It's been painted periodically over the years. It's just the paint's not holding. Several years ago, they put in metal siding on the west side of the hangar. Next year, we want to budget to put metal siding on the east side of the hangar. If for no other reason, trying to preserve it until at some point down the road we can find some type of funding source for grants or what have you to renovate, the old grind hangar. It's something that very few of these around that are still serviceable. We'd like to keep ours in good condition. So, hopefully that answers a lot of the questions. I didn't get into all the detail that you have in the packet, but hopefully it's clear enough that we can answer any other additional questions and move forward.
Mr. Thackeray, questions?
It's 72 years old. I'd say it's probably about time.
Mr. Pena?
I can't say anything better than that, so.
It looks like it was the lowest bid you came.
It was the lowest of the 5 quotes we went after.
You feel comfortable?
Yeah. Lucy, you're having other questions around that?
Okay. You feel comfortable? It's the lowest and he feels it's a good quality. Let's go with it.
Mr. Evans?
I have no questions.
Mr. Paul?
So just out of curiosity, of the 68,000, how much were the actual doors?
Well, the doors are the first item, it's 24,255.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Mrs. Smith?
You sure we can't go 75 years on them instead of 72?
Is that for that?
I don't have anything.
Advertise that, right?
Okay.
Okay, council, anything else? Hearing nothing, all those in favor of accepting the Board of Control's recommendation to authorize purchase orders to various vendors in the amount of $68,309 for repairs to the hangars, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Let the record show Mr. Evans voted no, but it passes 5-1. And that was our last Board of Control request. We are at citizens' comments. We had one citizen sign in. We'll let him go first.
My name is Rick Rademacher. I was actually born in Urbana, Illinois, but I've been living in Urbana, Ohio for 65 plus years. So I'm a resident of Urbana, Ohio, living on College Street. I'm going to direct this not only to council and the people here, but also to the citizens of Urbana who might be watching this program tonight. As I did a couple years ago, you know, what can we citizens do to help the community of Urbana? Well, one thing I think that we can do is, I just got back from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It's kind of the mecca of aviation, the reason why I bring this here. But when I was up there, I'm trying to sell my aviation maps so I can pay for my booth, but I also like to talk about Urbana, and that's what I did. I wore this shirt the whole time, which you can see Urbana, Ohio on it, and then talking about the restoration of the B-17 at the airport, because I'm proud of what we're doing out there and of our airport and this aviation crowd, so of course they have an interest in that. I had to keep redirecting and making sure that they understood I was talking about Urbana, Ohio, and not Urbana, Illinois, because that's the University of Illinois, and a lot of people were up there from that area. But I talked about that, and that's, you know, something we as citizens can do whenever we're outside of Urbana. Talk up Urbana, talk up the community. Who knows but what that may lead to in the future. And then secondly, and before I get off that though, I also talked about our fly-in. We're going to have our Murphy fly-in coming up here in August. So I'll pass these pamphlets around to everyone, encouraging pilots who could do it. To again come to Urbana, participate in the fly-in. It's a neat fly-in. I think people enjoy it. Again, there was an aviation crowd there. But I also brought this thing to say that, gosh, you know, we have to look at things, I think, a little bit differently too. And I certainly have. When we look at this aircraft, and people say, is this going to fly? Actually, this flies as well, if not better, than if I have a straight wing on it. People say, oh, is that true? I would demonstrate it here, but some of you might have to duck because it's kind of a small space, so I won't do that here. But so let's look at things differently. It was brought to my attention and that I'm spending now a little bit more time out of Urbana at a place called the Villages in Florida. It's a place that started out in the 80s as a trailer course. That's all it was, trailer course in 80s. In the year 2000, they had 35,000 people there. Now how many people are down there? 110,000 people. Growing community. In the year 2011, 1% of all new houses sold in the United States were sold in the Villages. 1% of all houses in the United States. That shows you the kind of community it is. This year, Forbes rated it number one in towns of between 100 and 250,000 in the United States. Number one for opportunities for small business. That's what really got me, is opportunities for small business. Because of this growth of this community, now it's a retirement community. Can we have a retirement community here? Well, I think we could if we would, and we do to some extent, but except we don't have the weather that they have. But there are other things we can look at. So I want us to all look at, both citizens and people here, look at it about how can we change the perception of Urbana. I always thought, quite honestly, in living here most of my life, that, I like Urbana kind of the way it is. Small community, let's kind of keep it small and all this. Well, having looked at this other community now, I think, boy, I'm not so sure. I may change my mind on that. My perception has changed a little bit, how I'm looking at Urbana, Ohio. I think, maybe it's time that we should grow a little bit and we should do other things because of the possibilities that present themselves if we do that. So I would encourage us all to look at our community a little bit differently. Let's help our community, promote our community as best we can. And again, I invite everyone to attend the Murphy coming up here in a couple of weeks.
What's the date?
It starts on the Friday, I believe the 21st, and then it's the 22nd is Saturday will be the biggest day. Sunday, it's in the morning, but then in the afternoon it tapers off. So Saturday would be the day to go. Thank you again.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Rick was the only one that signed in. Would any other citizen at this time like to come forward and speak to the administration and council? Okay, we'll move right on into ordinances and resolutions. Madam Clerk, third reading.
Ordinance number 4443-15, an ordinance accepting the annexation of a tract of 2.052 acres, more or less, to the city of Urbana, Ohio.
Okay, council, this is a third reading. You need a motion.
Mr. Hess, I make a motion that we place ordinance number 443-15 on the business floor for discussion and possible passage.
Second.
One more time.
Sure. This is the official acceptance of the Dollar Tree property. Basically, if council passes this tonight, the legislation will sit 30 days to become law, and then at that point, the city can record the annexation proceedings with the recorder and the Secretary of State and Board of Elections, and I think there's one more. So anyway, we'll get that done, and so around September 7th, September 8th, somewhere in there, basically that property will be in the city and have city services and whatnot, and go back to having an inside the city water bill, and the employees get to pay income tax.
Okay. Mr. Pena, any questions?
No questions.
Comments?
No, no comments either.
Mr. Fields?
Parking lot's full.
It's been very busy.
Yep.
I have nothing else to say.
Mr. Evans?
Now, just want a clarification, and I know we've been over this, but what made this tract continuous was the property behind it.
Behind and across the road.
Okay, because the Cub Cadet dealer next door is not in the city.
Correct. And the church is not. And then on the west side, the trees drive through and the restore.
Okay, now, the back portion that we're talking about, how far does it go down? Does it go down past the properties that we're talking about?
The part across the back of all those properties.
Where does the city line stop?
A good part of the acreage north or behind all of those properties is in the city, essentially like wrapping all the way around it.
So, taking that in consideration, any parcel that would want to come in now could do that because of that rearage.
Yes, any of the properties that are out there now are contiguous and they could file for annexation.
Now, we've in zoning and these type of things and annexations, we've always considered islands. Have we created one there?
They created one about 15 years ago when they did the original annexation of all the area around it. It should have been brought in at that time. Even the township trustees, when we were working with them on the 36 project last fall, said it should have been taken in at that time. So I guess the water and sewer is one way that annexation over time will play out, hopefully for the rest of that to be brought into the city.
So to reaffirm what we've talked about with past annexations, if enough of those property owners around there wanted to come in, would the rest of them have to come in, kind of considering what we did out here with?
With Old Town?
Yes.
Yes, you have to have the 51% of the property owners that can force the ones in that do not want to be in.
Okay.
That's what happened with Old Town.
Okay. I'm clear on that now. Thank you.
You good? Nothing to add. Let's wrap it up and be done.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Thacker?
Nothing.
Okay, this is a third reading. We need a roll call on this, please.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thackeray?
Yes.
Mr. Pena?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 4443-15 passes unanimously. 30 days will be in the city, right?
What'd you say?
30 days,
roughly.
Right. That was our last third reading. Second readings, please.
Ordinance number 4444-15, an ordinance to establish the compensation of future elected officials of the city of Urbana, Ohio, as amended after first reading.
Okay, council, this was a second reading, but we amended it. We talked about it at the work session. The law director amended it. So we can talk about it now, as it is a second reading. Mr. Fields, anything you'd like to say?
Is there any way that anything could be set per charter, that you would receive the monies that would enable you to get your years of service counted?
Per charter?
Yeah.
No, a charter amendment would have to go to the voters of the city, citywide.
Okay. But you see what I'm saying, because it went from 250 to what,
Right.
600?
Well, and part of what Mr. Evans had brought up with the PERS changes that took effect last year, and Ms. Betcher had also pointed out, what we did was include language that anytime PERS makes a change like that, council's going to have to go back and review it, even though they cannot give themselves an interim increase. There is some language in PERS that says if the elected official, and that's in the attachment C, if it says if the elected official would have otherwise been eligible, that they can go ahead and contribute up to what they would have had.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Now, let's kind of review what we amended.
Okay.
And the key one was how we pay council. We're not going to pay per meeting. We're going to leave it the same.
Yes, it's going to be it's going to be the same as far as monthly, but the amount would be increased so that council members would still get the full PERS credit.
Okay. And then, was there any pay raises or?
That would be a raise, yes.
Okay. How about for any other?
The council, the mayor, and the council president would all be
Ordinance
receiving
states all the
raises.
raises in it.
Okay, so that doesn't take effect until
Until the next term.
the next term. So
Nobody today gets that.
some of us aren't voting ourselves, say.
None of you are voting yourselves.
Nobody.
It's for
You
the
can't do
position
that.
that would take effect next term.
Okay, now when does the thing for the OPERS kick in?
The OPERS would kick in at when the salary is established at the beginning of the next term.
January.
So anybody sitting now would not get the benefit of that contribution,
But can apply to
but can't
OPERS
apply to
because
give the
legislation's
additional
been.
money. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that's all explained in the Exhibit
Okay,
C, which is
yeah,
from
I just
the
wanted to make sure
OPERS.
I was reading accurate information. Okay, that's all I have.
Mr. Paul?
No, Al basically asked my question, so I have nothing else.
Mrs. Smith?
No.
Mr. Thacker?
My questions have been answered.
Mr. Pena?
No questions. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, no further questions. We'll declare ordinance number 4444-15 to have had a second reading. That was the last second reading. We'll go to the first reading.
Resolution number 2458-15, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration and/or Fire Chief to accept on behalf of the City of Urbana the staffing for adequate fire and emergency response SAFER grant from the United States Department of Homeland Security and declaring an emergency. Suspension of rules requested.
Okay, council, how would you like to handle this? You want to suspend the rules first?
Mr. Hess, I propose that we suspend the three reading rule on resolution number 2458-15.
I'll second.
Who seconded it? Mr. Fields? Okay, roll call on the suspension, please.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thackeray?
Yes.
Mr. Pena?
Yes.
Mr. President, I would like to follow that up with, I would like to make a motion that we place resolution number 2458-15 on the business floor for discussion and passage.
Second.
Okay. Chief, you talked about this at the work session, but let's talk about it a little bit more.
Okay. Basically, this would be a grant to fund 2 firefighter positions for at least 2 years. So we're looking at $305,232 that the city would receive to compensate those firefighters based on benefits and salaries. As we discussed in the meeting, it has not been officially announced. This is to make sure that we will accept it, but because there's been some confusion with a little bit with the paperwork, because there will probably be another grant that I'll be coming to you for that we're receiving. So those papers kind of got crossed. So there's been a delay in the announcement at this point. So anyway, this will get us 2 firefighters for the 2 years, and as we discussed also at the meeting, there's going to be some retirements coming too in the future that we may have to fill, and we have to maintain our full staffing at 23 during the period of this grant.
Mr. Fields, questions?
I don't have any questions. I just thank you for going after this grant, Mark.
Mr. Evans?
He said it for me, but thank you.
Mr. Paul?
Same thing.
Mrs. Smith?
Same.
Mr. Thackeray?
Thanks for being on top of it.
Mr. Pena?
No questions, but thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. If there's no further questions or comments, roll call on passage, please.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Thackeray?
Yes.
Mr. Pena?
Yes.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.